Welcome back from Stasis. Today we have another Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol magazine video. This is batch 4 of the US edition, issues 11 through 14. Let's take a quick look at what comes in each issue, and then we'll cover each one in more depth. First up, this batch came with a bonus Primaris Company Champion. It comes with a single page with its build instructions. There's also a push-fit model. While it has no use in the actual combat patrol, it is a nice bonus miniature. Our first issue, number 11, came with 2 paints, Lead Belcher and Corax White. Unfortunately, I'm not a fan of Games Workshop Citadel Color Whites. I don't think I've ever opened one that has not had separation issues. However, I was just about to run out of Lead Belcher, so that will be a good replacement. Then we have issue 12, which gives us the first half of our Terminator squad. Still our push-fit models, which I imagine will be for the majority of this run. And issue 13 completes the rest of the Terminator sprue. And issue 14 gives us 2 more paints, Screamer Pink and Rackhearth Flesh. It's a hard one to pronounce. Both are good colors. I like using the flesh for various tones. The pink is actually one I don't have, but it was one I was looking to pick up. Now for a closer look at the issues themselves. First up, number 11. Of course, immediately gets us using our Lead Belcher for some of the metallic details, as well as the Corax White for some of the decorations. We go into some lore on the Mechanicus, and how the Tyranids use bioweapons. I do like the visual guide to their different weapons. And our rules introduction this time is on phases of a turn and objectives. I'm going to give you a good breakdown of your phases and how to check control for objectives. The one thing I do not like, they mentioned there, was that they have cutouts at the back of this issue for objectives and victory points. I wish they would have sent us some punch card similar to the data cards we had gotten previously. I think that would have been a lot better. But our mission this time is objective secured. And we continue building off of our rule set, and now we're introducing objectives and scoring some points off them. And give the Marines the first turn and some example movements. Then turn and turn. And of course our lore bit for the winner. Now, since the last time I have done one of these, I have played through the previous missions. Rather quickly, I found it's about equal on who won each one. So it was a little back and forth. And they had a decent little story going along with it. One thing I am curious of, I'm also learning the Combat Patrol rules as I'm going through this, as well as 40k itself. They mentioned that you score objectives in the command phase at the beginning of your turn. So in my mind, I'm thinking that your final turns are not worth a whole lot. Now the Marines take the first turn, so that means the Tyranids will take the final turn of the game. So they can't push to score any extra objectives on their last turn. Whatever they... Moving on to issue 12. This is where we get our Terminators, and of course, we're going to have our build instructions for them. This is for the whole squad, so when you do open up your next issue to get the rest of the sprue, you will have to come back to this one for the build. We have, similar to the Tyranid weaponry that was shown off last issue, we have Space Marine weaponry, both ranged and melee. And then our rules for this time are battle shock tests and how they affect objective control. So we play the hold or die mission. Technically not using the Terminators yet because you won't have the full models until the next issue. And this seems to be pretty much the same as the last mission. The only difference is you're now using battle shock and the penalties of objective control from it. Again, the Marines get first turn. One of the things here, they show the Winged Prime moving out of position, probably to lend battle support to take on the Marines. However, if it stayed back, it would continue holding the objective. Both good and bad, because I think without its support, those Barb Gaunts would not hold that point very long. And this one even goes into each side's second turn, which you can see here that Winged Prime has advanced and has tied up the Marines so that the Barb Gaunts are free to continue holding that point and assault anything. Just where something like you might have the Winged Prime fall back so that the Barb Gaunts can then take shots on the unit that it left, and then of course it can advance to another objective. So some good examples of some tactical gameplay. And of course our lore bit and our issue preview. And finishing up our Terminator squad with issue 13. Now that we've built them, we of course will need to paint them. So this will get you all the steps up to where all of your other units are. And now we have lore on creating Space Marines. This might be a little bit on the light side. There's a lot that goes into the creation of a Space Marine. Of course, we have our checklist and background for the Terminator squad, as well as their data card. And our rules section this time is about leaders and how they attach to units. Then it also starts covering a few special abilities, such as the Librarian's Veil of Time ability and the Captain's Unstoppable Valor. It also introduces stealth and fights first for the Tyranids. Have to give both sides some special abilities. I do like that we're not jumping into every special ability to start and introducing them slowly. Then our mission is an interesting setup. They'll use the Terminators, the Terminator Captain, and the Terminator Librarian. You will pick either the Captain or the Librarian to attach to the Terminator squad, and the other one will be on its own. The squad with its attachment will go into one zone, the other will go into the other zone. And again, we're playing objective control. However, they have given the Tyranids an extra way to score victory points by killing Space Marine leaders. Although I will have to say, with every Space Marine unit being a Terminator, that might be kind of hard. But you can see it is very much overwhelming numbers. So while the Terminators are strong, they do not seem to have great board control. They are only so many. We shall see how that pans out. And then we get our first preview of a issue from the next batch. That will be the final Tyranid unit of the Psychophage. At least the final one for the Combat Patrol proper. We may get a bonus. And finally, issue 14, which gave us the 2 extra paints. Of course, we have to start using them, which they are using the Rakarth Flesh for the seals, or at least the parchment. And they're using the Screamer Pink for the actual wax seals themselves. And I do like the Rakarth Flesh for the inside of the cloak. Traditionally, I would not use those colors for those items, but it may work. Now, the obvious choice to me is the Screamer Pink for the tongues inside the mouth of the Tyranids. And for our lore, we have the Inquisition, one of my favorites. We have some more on Space Marine's Oath of Moment. And the third Tyrannic War. It's a lot of Tyrannic Wars. They do make them feel like a threat. Our rules this time start giving us deployment rules. So now we'll be rolling to see who deploys first and rolling to see who takes the first turn. So should no longer be mandated by these missions. They give you some deployment tips, such as checking threat ranges, starting on objectives if you can. Some of this seems obvious. Matching units, I think that's a more complicated concept than they make it seem here. There's probably a fine balance to figuring out what good foils to other units are, but that's probably a good chunk of the strategy of Combat Patrol. Then we get how to use infiltrators and how to deep strike. Conveniently enough, our mission is called Deep Strike. Well, they have done a strange thing here. You get the captain by himself, you get the 5 Infernus Marines, and just 2 Terminators. With the caveat that the captain must deep strike. Now my question, since we just recently were introduced to the Battle Shock rules, do the 2 Terminators count as Battle Shocked, or should we just consider that 2 is their starting number? Some things they don't seem to spell out for us in these issues. I would probably count 2 as their starting number so that they don't start Battle Shocked. And the Tyranids are going to use the Barb Gaunts, their Leapers, and their Termagants. No partial units for them. And then they give you the option to infiltrate the Leapers. You should probably infiltrate the Leapers, seeing as they can start pretty much on an objective. Score you more points at the beginning. And other than that, we're just doing traditional objective scoring. Now, they do show Tyranids going first here, but I think at this point you should be rolling for it. but I guess they have to show someone going first for an example. And here's our story tidbit. And unfortunately, our final preview for our next batch shows more paint. Now with the Psychophage coming in the first part of that next batch and completing the Tyranid Combat Patrol, and our Space Marine Combat Patrol was completed in this batch, I would venture to guess, I haven't looked ahead, I know other places have it posted, but I believe we'll start getting some units for our next Combat Patrol. I think it is Eldar. I've looked ahead before, but I don't remember. But it will be interesting to see. I hope it doesn't just have extra paints and the extra issues, although it could be some bonus miniatures as well. We shall see. Until then, enjoy Stasis.